some of their stuff to just be plain weird?
Kamalashi chose the weird guy. The guy they consider this to be inventive. He decided to call people weird. You know, the guy who's harvesting the organs of little boys in schools in Minnesota while keeping their parents in the dark. Thinks that an actual Iraq vet is weird. They use the words, but they don't know what they mean. Well, happy Wednesday to you, and I'm back. Welcome. I'm going to welcome myself back. Welcome me back after our wonderful sea cruise with 170 of our closest friends, great Americans, all sailing. I don't know. There might have been about 7 seas that we sailed on, out of Amsterdam, winding up in London, Southampton, with multiple stops in Scotland and Northern Ireland, Belfast, Wales, the Isle of Man. The Isle of Man was a big winner. County Cork and the Blarney Stone. Then Southampton and London. Great people, our annual sea cruise. And a few things happened while we were off sailing the seas. And boy, it just keeps on picking up steam, doesn't it? And now we've got this left-wing, radical, China-loving, what is it with the Democrat Party in communist China? They're really in bed, naked, lubed up, writhing around in a sleeping bag with communist China. And we got another one now with this radical left-wing, extremist, organ-harvesting, gender dysphoria governor he loves the riots and hates the police and gets more crime. And it turns out he's another one that loves communist China. He honeymooned in communist China with his communist China-loving wife, I guess. You know, Bernie Sanders honeymooned with his destroy the college, bankrupt the college wife. They honeymooned in the Soviet Union. But Kamala Harris's pick couldn't pick the Jew, you know, because too many Democrats hate the Jews. Democrats, the Protestants hate the Catholics, and the Catholics hate the Protestants, and every Democrat hates the Jews. So couldn't pick the Jewish governor from Pennsylvania, where they might actually have a battleground going on there in the state of Pennsylvania. But they've effectively admitted that they just can't pick a Jew because the Democrats, too many Democrats hate the Jews. And they got this jihad vote in key swing states in Michigan and Minnesota, and they got to pander to the jihad. And speaking of which, Iran involved in another attempt to assassinate Donald Trump. And the news media is downplaying the hell out of this one, too. And so is the Department of Justice, by the way, and the FBI under Joe Biden and the corrupt FBI leadership, Christopher Wray, the sneering boy. Hey, where's the press conference on catching the guy that was here to assassinate Donald Trump? Any press conference on that? No press conference. Nothing on that. But back to the communist-loving governor of Minnesota. This guy is something. He loves child genital mutilation for free while keeping it a secret from the parents. And illegal aliens get all kinds of wonderful benefits, free health care, free college, and I assume that they can sever the genitalia of their children as well if they like. But it turns out that Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, he beat out Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania because Josh Shapiro's the Jew. And throw the Jew down the well, as the Democrats sing. I think they're going to open the Democratic Convention in Chicago singing "Throw the Jew down the well," because that's their position when it comes to these matters. And they love Iran. They keep funding Iran, and Iran sent a Pakistani, to the United States to target and assassinate President Trump. That's not really a big news story, and the news media is burying it. Paragraph number 5 or so, you'll see, oh yeah, President Trump was the target of the, it's an amazing time to be alive. So there's a lot to talk about, but turns out Walz lived in China, the Democrat mayor of Minnesota, who loves child genital mutilation and free stuff for illegal aliens and nothing for you. Sit down and shut up. And he lived in communist China. He's visited communist China, they say, about 30 times. He can't be entirely sure how many times in communist China. And he tells us that socialism is the equivalent of neighborliness. Socialism, which is the word that communists use to describe communism, because it's a much less harsh word. You smooth off the rough edges when you call it socialism. And the Soviet Union, the USSR, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and of course Adolf Hitler's party was the National Socialist German Workers' Party. It was a socialist workers' party. And now the Democrat Party, they are there. And they love the communists in China. They, who do we have? Eric Swalwell. He had a sexual affair for years with Fang Fang, the honeypot, secret agent Chinese slut bag that they sent to the United States to have sex with Democrats. And Eric Swalwell went right in. He's all in with the Chinese spy that he had a sexual, and it's no big deal. It's not a news story. It's, it's like the day that a Bernie Sanders volunteer showed up on a baseball field and shot Congressman Scalise and tried to murder the whole baseball field full of Republican members of Congress, of the House and the Senate. Just a one-day story, not really a big thing. But Bernie Sanders, who honeymooned in the Soviet Union, socialist, and he'll tell you he's a Democrat socialist, and food will be flying out from between his teeth. Socialist, right? And his volunteers shot Congressman Steve Scalise, an attempted mass murder of Republican members of Congress. And, of course, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Democrat California, had a Chinese agent, secret agent, on her staff in her office in San Francisco for years and years. And that's no big deal. That's not. And then the FBI finally let her know. They had known for a long time. They finally let her know, yeah, Chinese spy working for you in San Francisco and your staff, your Senate staff, no big deal. Tara Reid, who Joe Biden sexually assaulted when she was on his staff, so to speak, on Capitol Hill years ago. She fled now to Russia, where Putin is. Just a coincidence. Honestly, the Democrat Party and their communist Chinese, oh, by the way, was Senator Kelly was in the running too. Mark Kelly of Arizona, he was in the running to be the vice presidential running mate. And guess what? He's got all kinds of ties to communist China. And apparently that's why he didn't make the short list, because of his ties to communist China and their spy balloon companies. No, they're greedy. It's, the old, I believe it was Lenin who said the capitalist will sell you the rope with which to hang them. And Mark Kelly making money from communist China, spy balloon stuff. And I guess that they decided that was too much. But so they picked instead Tim Walz, who lived in communist China, who's visited communist China more than 30, well, they say around or about 30 times. Couldn't be too specific. They're not sure. Maybe more, maybe less. Probably more. When they say around or about, it probably means more. And the Washington Post downplaying it, the news media downplaying the most powerful tool thing the Democrat Party has is the propaganda machine that is the American media, the news media and the broader media with, The View and late night TV and Saturday Night Live and on and on. That the most powerful propaganda apparatus the world has ever seen. Al Charlatan would tell you that Gurgle is envious. That would be Joseph Goebbels, the propaganda minister of the Socialist Workers' Party of Adolf Hitler. And isn't it great? They call everybody Nazis, and then they chant from the river to the sea, calling for the Jews to be wiped off the face of the earth. No sense of irony, these people. Amazing stuff. So Tim Walz, also, he is there going around telling us that he was a command sergeant major, an extremely high, the highest ranking enlisted status in the United States military for a non-commissioned officer. And they say he was a command sergeant major. It turns out that's a lie. That's on his website. They changed his Wikipedia page yesterday. They changed his Wikipedia page again today because they're like communists. They're so close to being communist that it's kind of amazing. And so he's not a command sergeant major. He didn't retire as a command sergeant major. When his unit was going to deploy to Iraq, he quickly left the U.S. military after years of not going into combat. And then he found out that his unit was going to deploy to Iraq, and suddenly he's out of here, man. He's completely out. And this is, the guy who he was happy to go to communist China around 30 times, about 30 times, and to live in communist China. But when it came time for his unit to go to Iraq, that's when he beat feet and he was out of here. Stolen valor with the false claim of being a command sergeant major, which is an exalted, it is. I mean, it's a command sergeant major brings exalted status in the United States military, in the enlisted ranks, in the non-commissioned ranks, and in the commissioned officer ranks. Command sergeant major is a big deal. It's unfortunate that he's not one of those, even though he's been claiming to be a command sergeant major for years and years. He's not. He's a big liar and a fraud, and it's a stolen valor thing. So remarkable things to get to today having to do with Kamala Harris's vice presidential pick. He gave me the creeps yesterday when he came out in Philadelphia, too. He behaves, I think he learned his behavior from Hillary Clinton. He comes out on the stage and with his mouth wide open, agape, his eyebrows high in the air, tilting his head back, pointing in the back of the room as though he recognizes somebody. He studied videos, it looks like, of Hillary Clinton being fake, and now he's as fake as she is, I think. At least he's adopted many of the... it's remarkable to see. So we've got that for you today. Just amazing. And again, the attempted assassination of President Trump, and the Justice Department doesn't come out and hold a press conference on that. That's not a big deal. An Iranian agent spending time in Iran, a Pakistani man, a Muslim, and he came here to hire people in a plot to assassinate, to murder, to kill Donald John Trump, President Trump. Former and future President Trump. News media treats it like it's nothing. The Justice Department treats it like it's nothing. We live in a very corrupt country. I'm sorry to have to report, but a very corrupt country. And in the meantime, the communist, anti-Semite, America-hating, anti-capitalist Democrat Congresswoman Cori Bush of the squad, the death squad, is what they are. She lost her primary election yesterday to some other guy that they're assuring us who is not a radical. They're saying he's not a radical, but we'll see about that. Cori Bush, squad member and vocal critic of Israel, loses her primary. And the New York Times is upset about that because they love rabble-rousing, and she's anti-capitalist, too. She's still out there screaming like a demented Venezuelan crook about how she's going to destroy corporations and stuff. This is the Democrat Party today. They're not Democratic at all. The Democratic Party isn't. Keep that in mind. Friendly fire isn't. Common courtesy isn't. The Democratic Party isn't. They are not Democratic at all. But squad member Cori Bush loses her Missouri Democratic primary to a guy named Wesley Bell, who they're telling us is moderate, but they lie about everything, the news media. It is the biggest lie the world has ever seen. Honestly, the Nazis under Goebbels had nothing on the Democrats in the United States today. So we've got amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. And they're telling us that Tim Walz, is Walz? I think Walz, not Waltz, but Walz. I'm going with Walz. They're telling us that he's a Midwestern moderate. He's nothing of the kind. And I will explain as we go forward. His National Guard battalion was left hanging as he slithered out the door before Iraq deployment. That's according to his fellow Minnesota National Guard members who wrote a piece on this and have been vocal about it. But the news media is going to hit him in the back of the head with a shovel and bury them in a shallow grave outside of Las Vegas because that's what they do. They're propagandists, not journalists, 90-some% of them. And amazing stuff. Also, did you hear about Tim Walz's DUI? Some pretty impressive numbers on his DUI. 96 miles an hour. And when do you hear one of the breathalyzer numbers? Those were quite impressive, too. And he used to support the Second Amendment, but he doesn't anymore. He does love communist China, though. But when you're a Democrat, all that is fine. That's all fine. Assassination plots, shooting Republican members of Congress on baseball fields, Bernie Sanders volunteers. No big deal. Don't pick the Jew to be the running mate because the Democrats hate the Jews from the river to the sea, as they say. And then the propagandists in the news media feed us a line of stuff that is, let's just be generous and say, far from the truth. I, on the other hand, I lust for the truth, whatever it may be. And we remain at 888-630-9625.
You're listening to The Chris Plant Show.
And we are back. And let's go to a telephone call. Talk to the nice people at 888-630-9625. Let's go to Robert calling from Hughesville, Maryland. Roberto, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Uh-oh. We have to push the buttons. Robert, you're on the Chris Plant Show. Robert is not on the Chris Plant Show because the button is not calling up Robert on the thing. Let's try an alternate. Let's try James calling from Huntsville, Alabama. James, you're on the Chris Plant Show. And I hear that's not working either. Okay. Welcome back. Welcome back. The machines sometimes do that. Well, let me share with you some. We'll straighten this out and hang in there, please, Robert and James. We'll see if we can sort out our technical difficulties because I must be back. I must be back in the studio. That's probably what's going on here. Now, let's get to the pick, the vice presidential pick for Kamala Harris, who is it would be unfair to say that he's apparently a communist. Would that be unfair? Let's just talk about what he's done as governor. He became governor of Minnesota in 2019. And what has he been doing there? We did this on my excellent Newsmax show last night at 10 p.m. Eastern time. And let's get into some of what he's done as governor of Minnesota. All right? His first executive order, he took office, and his first executive offer was a diversity, equity, and inclusion council. He created a DEI council. I did see one headline. Now my microphone has stopped. What's happening with the buttons here, Jeff? The buttons are not doing what they're supposed to do today, are they? So the first thing he did was he created a council, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you'll never believe what he did from there on out. We're going to see what we can do about our technical issues here. We're going to call in a team of experts. They'll drop through the ceiling tiles and see what we can make happen. But wait till you hear what this guy has said and what he says, and then the big lie. The lie is so big that no one would dare not believe it.
This is the Chris Plant Show.
Yes, the Chicago Democratic Convention is coming up, and a little blood in the streets of Chicago. There might be less violence in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention as a result of the fact that they didn't pick the Jew, because you know how they are about all of that. They hate the Jews, the Democrats. They chant from the river to the sea, like Hamas. They're not good people. They're not on our side. They've got gender dementia as well. What's with that? And illegal alien. They love illegal aliens. They love that. Let's go back and try. I believe that we have sorted out our technical difficulties, technical challenges. It's just part of the welcome back package. Let's go to Robert, who's still calling from Hughesville, Maryland. We hope. Robert, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Good morning. Welcome back to the most humid place on earth, Chris.
Well, thank you very much. Very nice. I got to tell you, the weather was beautiful in Scotland and Wales and the Isle of Man. It really was. It was great. The sun was out. It was very nice. And
you could fry an egg on the sidewalk here.
Yeah. Well, it's that saves money on gas.
I guess that's true. Well, look, for years, man, these guys have been talking how the Republican Party has been out to suppress the minority vote, steal the right to people's votes, and all this stuff they've been talking about the Republican Party. And here you have them stealing 14 million Democrat primary voters' vote. I mean, their vote, they could have flushed it down a toilet and got more use out of it. But here they call it the democracy. We've got democracy. What kind of democracy is this? If you're a Democrat voter, to have your vote literally stolen out from under you, and you're going to continue to vote for this? I just don't understand it, Chris.
Well, you know, we were marveling at the fact that the radical extremist, racist, anti-capitalist, anti-Semite squad member Cori Bush lost her primary yesterday in Missouri, St. Louis, for a House seat. We were marveling that they actually had a primary and people voted, and they allegedly counted the votes, which you can't necessarily trust them to do. But Cori Bush lost big in the primary there. And my best girl and I were talking about it this morning. We're just impressed that they had people show up and vote, and they counted the votes in what they're calling a primary, because you're right, of course, that 14 million people voted for Joe Biden in the primary, and then they threw him out because Barack Obama said it's time for him to go. And I'll tell you, one of the things I want to know, Robert, is how much involvement there was on the part of Barack Obama, who was mentored as a teen by a communist named Frank Marshall Davis. And then Barack Obama, of course, made a communist voter, John Brennan, the CIA director. And then the CIA director and his cabal tampered with the last presidential election in 2020. They're actual communists all over the place in this story, which is pretty freaky. And then you're right, they say they're going to save democracy. And I've been mockingly saying, Robert, that they had to destroy democracy in order to save it, like that village in Vietnam. We had to destroy it in order to save it. And honestly, they don't believe in democracy. They're not saving democracy. They're scuttling democracy. They're destroying democracy. They're stealing democracy. They're making a mockery of democracy, and it's demockery. And honestly, you said it. 14 million votes. Democrats voted for Joe Biden, and now he's not the nominee. And they gave it to Kamala Harris because Barack Obama said so. And now they've got this guy who lived in communist China, who visited communist China around 30 times, according to the Washington Post, who says that socialism is neighborly when, in fact, it's the most blood-drenched, lethal political system the world has ever known, murdering 100 million people in the last 100 years or so. And they're bragging about this. It's kind of amazing to watch in the United States of America, isn't it, Robert? Oh, did Robert drop off? He said his piece. Or maybe we're having more technical difficulties. I can't say for sure. But looks like, hey, look at the phone. Oh, yeah, looks like Robert dropped off. All right, and with that, because we had these technical glitches earlier, and I went to Robert, and then I tried to go to James. Let's now go to James calling from Huntsville, Alabama. James, you're on the Chris Plank Show.
Hey, Chris. Welcome back to I'm still reserving the right to be wrong because et cetera, et cetera. I think you know the rest of it. Do we rename the Democrat Party the Socialist Democrat Party or the Democrat Socialist Party? Because, we have got to be precise about these things.
We do have to be precise in the use of language. And you're right. Look, Bernie Sanders brags about being a democratic socialist. The much more important word of the two is socialist. All right. The guy who honeymooned in the Soviet Union, and now Kamala Harris has chosen a vice presidential running mate that honeymooned in communist China. Do you see a pattern emerging here, James?
Yeah, I was a government accountant, but still maybe I could see this.
Yeah. Maybe even though you were a government accountant, it's amazing stuff. Look, they're racist. Aren't they racist? This whole DEI thing is racist. Joe Biden said he was going to choose as a running mate a woman, and a woman of color. And those were the only priorities for the Democrat Party, keeping in mind that the Democrat Party is, it's worth repeating over and over again because it's been erased from American history. They're the party of the Confederate States of America and the Confederate President, Jefferson Davis. They're the party of Nathan Bedford Forrest, who created the White Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. The only Klansman I know I ever met was a Democrat senator named Robert Byrd from West Virginia, who was the exalted Cyclops of the Democrat Party and the KKK. He created the KKK in West Virginia. Joe Biden was one of his colleagues in the Senate for many years, a colleague in good standing. They're the party of every single Jim Crow law ever passed in the history of the United States. Every person that stood in a schoolhouse door to keep black students out was a Democrat, an elected Democrat. Governors George Wallace and Orville Faubus and on and on. They're the Democrat Party. This is the real history of the Democrat Party. And now the Democrat Party has morphed. And listen, you're right, James. Should we call them the Democrat Socialists or the Socialist Democrats? Because they are not a capital. And look, Cori Bush, when she lost her primary in a peculiar fashion last night, was screaming about how she's still going to attack, screaming like a mental case, standing at a bus stop on a street corner in Washington, D.C. She should be dragged away in a straitjacket and thrown into an institution. But she's a Democrat in good standing, and she's still a member of the House for the time being. She lost her primary, but she's still in the House of Representatives for now. And she's screaming like a lunatic about how she's going to attack corporations, not even a particular industry, just capitalism itself, because she's a demented, crazy, commie, racist, anti-Semite, and a Democrat member of Congress in good standing with the Democrat Party. And all of this is just fine with the New York Times and CNN, which is why they have the public and the public opinion polls. They have the same standing as child rapists, who are all Democrats, Jeffrey Epstein and Harvey Weinstein, and the list goes on, and Bill Clinton's internship program in the White House, and on and on. But James, where do we go from here? What do we, we got to tell the truth. Well, let's start with that. And the Democrats and their media allies, who are legion, they're not truth people, are they, James?
Well, no, they aren't. And I think this campaign is lined up perfectly just to we have, millions of people who have fled socialist communist countries that can tell you exactly where this is headed and a government that makes all your decisions for you. It's just right there in front of people if they're willing to just open their eyes and see the direction. Do you want the government telling you where you can live, what cars you can drive, how much red meat you can eat? Let's just get real about this.
Yeah, well, one of the things that Tim Walz did as governor was he imposed all kinds of Wuhan Red Death mandates. And let me say, since you mentioned this, James, on my sea cruise, there was a very nice couple who had escaped Cuba as teenagers, wonderful couple, very nice looking to it, and very bright and successful American couple that fled communist Cuba, socialist Cuba. They call it socialist Cuba. It's the socialist paradise, and Barack Obama loves it down there. Barack Obama praised the Castro brothers, and he went down there posing for portraits in front of a giant wall-sized mural of Che Guevara, who is, by the way, a dedicated racist, hated black people, murdered people by the thousands, imprisoned people by the tens of thousands, and he's a hero of the Democratic Party in the United States of America. But this couple escaped Cuba, fled Cuba, came to the United States, thrilled to be living in the United States, to be free and to be successful. And they told me on the sea cruise last week, they said, listen, we see what's going on in the United States, and we recognize this. This is communism. This is no kidding. This is communism that we're watching, and the Democrat Party. And these people were sounding the alarm. They escaped Cuba, and they were telling me, and I know other Cubans as well, and other people that have fled Nicaragua and beyond, and people that have fled communist countries from Eastern Europe to Latin America will tell you that the Democrat Party is that party that they are implementing and bringing about. exactly what they fled. That's a fact, Jack. Now, James, thank you very much for the call. Let me get back to Tim Walz here because he loves communist China. He's all about communist China, and this is fine with the Democrat Party and with the news media, which is well, we're finding out what it is. Also note that Kamala only had a field of white men to choose from, right? And they pretended they had Pete Buttigieg on the list. He's a gay white man, but and a total failure at everything he's ever done, which is how Democrats succeed. The more you fail, the more you succeed. They fail up all the time. But they just had a field of white, except the Jewish guy, throw the Jew down the well. They couldn't pick him because the Jew. But otherwise, they only had white people, just white men. Like Joe Biden. In the end, let's face it, they chose Joe Biden. That's what they ended up choosing, isn't it? Yes, it is. Now let's go to from my show last night on Newsmax. As a matter of fact, what Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's white man pick, what he did when he became governor of the state of Minnesota. First act was to create a council on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And some of the headlines actually had diversity, inclusion, and equity, which I've always been mocking. They should call it DIE, diversity, inclusion, equity, America. It's their Die America program. Some of the headlines actually had it in that order. But he created a DIE council or a DEI council, first thing he did. And he signed a bill forcing schools to put tampon machines in the boys' bathrooms. Or they're not even machines, they're free. Somebody else pays for them. You don't have to pay, but they put tampons in the boys' rooms because they think that boys might be girls and girls might be boys, which used to be a clear indication of severe mental illness. Now it's just a clear sign that you're a Democrat, but what's the difference? So the tampons, and he's being called, Tampon Tim. He's already got nicknames all over the place. Tampon Tim, because he put the tampons in the boys' bathrooms. The DEI Council. Then he signed another bill making sure that illegal aliens were able to get Minnesota driver's licenses. And once you have a Minnesota driver's license, then you can register to vote. And then illegal aliens voting in Minnesota because, they're saving democracy by destroying it. And he made Minnesota a transgender refugee state. So if you're, having that problem, it doesn't mean anything. It's just a declaration, a statement, a political statement that you think transgenderism is a really good thing. Then he made sure that children of any age, 6 years old, can get sex change surgeries and other sex change treatments without the parents' consent and without the parents knowing, which is stealing children, kidnapping, child genital mutilation. We used to condemn it when it was in Sudan, and now the Democrats have brought it here. Also, illegal aliens, free health care. Now, the residents of Minnesota don't get free health care, but illegal aliens do. If you're a taxpayer, you don't. And also free tuition for illegal aliens in state schools, right? It's not free. It's just that other people pay for it. Also, he is a late-term abortion guy right up to the moment of birth, and he goes around bragging about these policies, and then the news media lies about it and covers it up and says he's a regular Midwestern Minnesota kind of guy and a military veteran. And wait till you hear about his military service, because this is a whole new thing as well. And another lie, another giant pack of lies from the Democrats. He ran as soon as he learned that his battalion was going to deploy to Iraq. He quit. He resigned. He lays claim to being a command sergeant major when he never actually earned the rank of command sergeant major. So that's what we call stolen valor. All right? Amazing stuff. And then there were the riots of 2020. And what he did then, pro-riot, pro-looting, pro-arson, anti-police, pro-criminal, pro-violent mobs, because he represents the Democrat Party. And then he was chosen to be the vice presidential running mate of Kamala Harris. Got that coming up. And we are at 888-630-9625.
There's only one Chris Plant. The Chris Plant Show.
And I see members of the military and veterans calling in to talk about Tim Walz. Let's start with John calling from Fairfax, Virginia. John, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, Chris. Thank you for taking my call.
You betcha.
So I wanted to bring up, I think it's important to think about the timeline of events back when this guy was resigning his post from the military. So if you recall, in April of 2005, there was an incident that broke out to the public involving some military police who had taken some not very pleasant pictures of some detainees, which caused an issue with the international community, as well as it became very problematic for the soldiers stationed on the ground because it gave the terrorists a form of enlistment. It helped them to recruit new terrorists. And what happened was after that broke, you started to see that the number of U.S. soldiers being killed in Iraq was steadily increasing. And then in November, this guy probably submitted his resignation in October, and he was out. And the reason that he gave for his resignation was to seek a seat in Congress, which he ultimately won. So his unit, which is, brigade or battalion, is sent over to Iraq in 2007 during the Iraq surge, when the insurgents kept just increasing in number, and we had to implement more troops. We had to send a lot more troops in order to quell the terrorist fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And his battalion, his troops that he abandoned because they didn't have a non-commissioned command major sergeant, ended up having to stay 22 months over there during the Iraq surge.
Yeah. You're talking about the Abu Ghraib.
Sorry, go ahead.
You're talking about the Abu Ghraib incident in the prison, and you're right, the unpleasant photos and so on. And he was the unit's command sergeant major, and he decided to drop out and go run for Congress to prove that he's a Democrat. He left him hanging. I've got a lot on this coming up, John, a whole bunch, and there are other military and veterans on the line as well.